welcome back to the another episode of Print Kyan. I'm thrilled today to be joined by someone whose name many of you will already know in the e-commerce world, Chloe Thomas. Chloe isn't just another voice in this space. She has been involved in online marketing for more than 2 decades. She has been top LinkedIn retail voice since 2023, named number 34 in the top marketing influencers in the UK in 2025, and have written several best selling books about e commerce and marketing. Over the years, she has helped hundreds of brands and retailers make better decisions, right from marketing strategy to customer retention, from the nuts and bolts of operations to the art of sustainable growth. So, whether you are a small business owner wondering how to scale up, or an e commerce professional navigating the shifting trends, or simply curious about what works and what doesn't in online retail space, you are in the right place with us today. On today's episode, we dig into the latest in e commerce, explore clever tricks and growth strategies, and find out what's really working today, straight from someone who has seen it all. So, Chloe, I'm so glad you can join me today. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Nidhi. It is lovely to be here. Very excited to chat with you about such interesting topics and a real pleasure. So thank you very much for the invite.
Okay. So, Chloe, if you had to summarize the biggest shift in the e commerce in one sentence, what would you say changed the game the most?
Competition levels, which may strike people as a surprise. You may be thinking, be like, oh, Facebook ads, or I would say Shopify or something. No, for me, it's the point at which the space in the industry, certainly here in the UK, US has experienced similar things. I know different countries at different stages, but it's that point at which the competition between brands online reached a point where it became, we sell online was no longer enough anymore. The land grab was over, the exciting Wild West was over, and now we're in a hugely competitive marketplace. That's the thing which has changed the game the most, is tipping from Wild West into competitive.
Okay. So, do you really feel that today shoppers aren't just buying a product? They're buying actually the experience, the convenience, and the alignment with what they are looking for.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen so on my podcast e-commerce master plan, I interview different retailers, and we're 10 years in now, so it's not a huge piece of research because we only do about 52 interviews a year, 52 episodes a year, but it's definitely a sign of how things have been changing. And at the beginning of the show, when we started 10 years ago, it was very practical advice people were giving. Like, this is what I'm doing on Facebook ads. This is what I'm doing with Google ads. This is how we solved a problem in our warehouse. Nowadays, the big growth companies that I'm chatting to, it's about values, culture, mission, how we create consistent branding, how we do storytelling, how we pull all that cohesive bit together with a big slice of customer research and the voice of the customer and UGC and all these good things about the customer. So yeah, I completely agree that it's customers are buying. Yes, the convenience has to be there. You can't make it difficult for them because they've got too much choice, too much competition to work their way through a difficult checkout process. But if you want them to be retained customers, which is where the profit comes in, then you've got to connect with them on a level that's greater than just making it an easy buying process. It's got to be a great product, it's got to be a good buying experience, and they need to feel some level of connection with you, which could be, I mean, if we're talking boxes of tissue, your listeners can probably hear I've got a cold on the go at the moment. That's about, practicality of the product. You're not going to feel massively emotionally connected to your box of tissues. But if you are talking more about fashion, more about lifestyle elements, more about design elements, then it becomes more about values, ethos, etc. So yeah, hugely, hugely important to get the emotional connection with your customer right, which starts with the customers, not with what the board think is the answer.
You have aptly covered how the customer sensitivity and emotions are, I think, the topmost agenda for brand owners, because I think that's what is driving customers to buy from you, whether online or offline, right? It has changed. However, I know you have been talking to brand owners day in and day out, doing research on this topic. What do you think is something brands are still missing, or what is that they misunderstand about Gen Z buying logic? I mean, the preferences. What's that common thing that you have noticed
I
everywhere?
think so. I kind of go to war with myself when we start talking about different demographics. So, like, the trained marketer in me is like, yes, we must understand the different generational differences. And then the pragmatic performance marketer in me goes, and then the bit of me that's obsessed with uh, neuromarketing and understanding all these triggers. It's fundamentally human brains haven't changed very much at all in the last thousands and thousands of decades. So I think the thing which people get confused about is by thinking they have to do something completely different for each different generation. And yes, each of the generations behave differently because of the technology they've grown up with, where they feel comfortable and everything. Yes, you do have to pay attention to that. But that is 5 to 10% of the story. It's not the 90% of the story. So people go, oh, we can't sell to old people. It's like, well, of course you can sell to old people. That you just need to make sure your desktop works and you haven't made it confusing. Get your mum to come and watch, and you'll quickly find out the couple of tweaks you need to make. But it's not a 90% change, it's a 5% change. And I think it's the same thing for Gen Z. And I think the other mistake, if I can add a second one in there, that we make when it comes to selling to the younger generations in particular, is we oversimplify it, right? By which I mean we oversimplify by going, well, they need a video, it needs to be TikTok, it needs to be crazy, or they're all about eco, or they're all about fast fashion. We just oversimplify with these stupid one-liners. But we also oversimplify by thinking they're the same for every product they buy. Like,
Yes.
there's been here in my LinkedIn world at the moment, there's been a spate of people talking about, I use a desktop for these purchases and I use a phone for these type of purchases. And I think that's even the youngest people in my network are saying similar things. There are certain things they will buy on desktop, certain things they will buy on a handset. And I think we very often go with Gen Z, it's all about the mobile. It isn't all about the mobile. There are still things they will buy with a desktop. At work, they are being forced to use a laptop. Through uni, they were being forced to use a laptop. So I think we oversimplify, and I think that's sometimes the danger. That's why I have the war with myself about it, is we have this danger of oversimplifying things when we lump people together like that. I think it's more important to understand your own customers, and how you can make the journey easy for them, rather than it is getting too hung up on different demographics.
I totally agree, because even when I notice my own buying behavior, it's the same, that if I'm buying something that's quick, that's an easy buck, I'll go on the mobile and order it. But if it's a conscious decision, if it's something that's long term, I'll probably research, use my laptop, give it few minutes and then buy, right? So yes, it hasn't changed. The human psychology hasn't changed, right? You know, nowadays talking about AI, AR, automation. But what's the real ROI? And what's this hype? And is this for real?
I love that. Is this for real? Yeah, but no. So I am I feel like anytime I get talking and get asked questions about AI and AR and automation, I have to kind of set the groundwork so people know where I'm coming from before I give the answer. So two important things you need to know about me before I answer this. One, I love systems, processes, and automations. I'm a proper junkie on that kind of thing. I love that flows to here and all that kind of stuff. And two, I am not an early adopter of new buzzword technologies purposefully because, well, two reasons. Efficiency. Why should I have to play around with all of this when someone else can do it and then tell me what works? But secondly, because, and having been in tech industries essentially for over 20 years now, things come in, everyone gets very excited. The salespeople and the marketing teams behind the tech put forward all these amazing case studies and examples of how they think people are going to use it. And then a couple of years later, we discover how people are actually going to use it. So we have all these buzzwords and all these crazy ideas of this is going to change your life and all this kind of stuff. But what really happens a couple of, a while behind the curve where I like to sit is you find out how the consumers, in this case, the e-commerce brands and retailers, are actually using the technology. And in the AI space at the moment, they are mainly using it badly. By which I mean they're not using it very strategically. So every panel I've heard, every retailer, not every, the great majority of the retailers and brands I've spoken to this year, the AI hype seems to have opened their eyes to the potential of efficiency drives and automation and optimizing those processes. So kind of where a lot of the business world was 10 years ago, the e-commerce world has caught up to the fact, we don't need to copy and paste, we could automate it. And I love the e-commerce world, but it's taken us a while to get there. So I think there's a lot of automation going on, but then I don't care whether someone is starting to use automation or AI or AR or any of these things in their business, so long as it is solving the problem for them. And I think we've got to the point in the industry where it's currently being used in two big ways. One is existing tech has deployed it. So personalization systems, graphic creation systems, video creation systems, the kind of the big hypey bits and pieces we hear about. That's been deployed and that's starting to work. If your data's up to scratch, if data isn't up to scratch, it's obviously not. And that's the big stalling point for a lot of brands trying to do this. Then the other side of it is they're dabbling with basic workplace automation, sorting out your inbox, making things move around the Trello board on their own. Those kind of basic things seems to be where people are. So I think I'm hoping that next year we become more strategic. And that means brands doing two things. One, creating an actual AI policy in the business. So you're saying to your teams, you're allowed to use this, you're allowed to use that. This is how we use AI. This is how we keep our data safe and we make the most of it, and knowledge sharing and all that kind of stuff. But then also that they start really focusing on not let's use more AI. That is not a strategy. They have a strategy of, right, we've got a problem with converting customers on our product page. How can we best improve our product page performance? And if you've got 1,000 SKUs and 1,000 product pages, I had a great example I saw the other day of a brand that had trained, done the training with an AI bot so that it would go and assess the website to find the inconsistencies and the problems on every product page and then rank them for them. So it's things like, in the picture, the jacket's got pockets, but doesn't mention pockets in the description. Or the picture's got two people in a skirt and it doesn't tell you which skirt is actually the one for sale. Just this really obvious basic stuff that AI is great at doing. So I think we need to get strategic. So problem first, then find the solution, which may or may not be AI. And I think we also need to put the strategic groundwork in place with those AI protocols. I went off on one then. Nidhi, did that at all answer your question?
And I can't agree more, because AI is suddenly like there is an ocean out there and you take a deep dive, but then you lose where you were headed to, right? And you start going in all directions because you think you'll reach there. That time then you need to have your direction very clear if you really want to make it to the end. I've seen customers coming to us talking about automation, but then when they start talking to multiple vendors and everyone is out there to sell something, and they highlight, someone is highlighting automation, someone is highlighting personalization, 3D previews, workflow optimization. I know having everything is awesome. You ultimately would want to have each one of these into your business, but you need to get to decide, what does your business need to get started with the AI? Where do you start? In what order you need these implementations to go, so that you're not only enabling your team, you're not only AI enabling your team, you're not only AI enabling your business, but you're investing your resources, time, and money in right direction, step by step, to reach there. That's what I think is most of the people out there missing, right?
I,
As we have touched upon the topic of personalization and 3D preview, I would like to talk a little bit about that, Chloe. Do you really think 3D previews create psychological ownership? Because that's when buyers are not only personalizing the stuff or considering buying a product, they actually feel they are claiming what is their own and just paying for it.
I mean, we know in the neuromarketing sense, the neuroscientists have proven that um, if you're involved in, and I forget which of the cognitive biases it is because I'm not a neuroscientist, I just love their work. There is that piece that if we're involved in the process, we are more likely to commit to it. Like if we cook the dinner, we're more likely to say it tastes good, even if it tastes horrendous. It's the same way our brains are programmed. So it's why personalized products are a great addition to a range, because the customer, during the buying process of entering what they want it to be personalized, they feel more committed to the product. It's why engaging if you're not doing personalized products, engaging your existing customer base in product development is a good idea, because they feel more engaged with the product and they're more likely to buy it. So I think personalized products, if you can do them within your range, are a great way of improving sales. If you do it, you've got to make sure you do it well, so you don't have a wasted product where someone's mistyped their friend's name or whatever it is they've got wrong in the process. And I think there is a place for previews, whether they're 3D or not, I'm not too worried about, but they're previews. So to give the customer the confidence of what they've created and how it's actually going to look. Where that stacks up on the massive list of things you could be doing in your business, I don't know, because they're complicated. They rarely exactly match what actually comes out at the far end. So there's always a caveat to it, but that's not necessarily a problem, but it's something you have to be aware of. So I think it's not a bad idea, but it might not be top of your list. And I think every business has to see, where actually does this fit in our list of what we actually need to improve the business in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months.
Makes sense. Now, all of us know that e-commerce is very dynamic. Some trends fade away and others emerge. And this is how the industry is getting redefined, right? So, what do you think? Which ones matter today? Is it the live stream shopping, subscription commerce, creator brands, or something else? What will dominate, or what is relevant today?
Oh, that's such a big question. Such a huge, huge question. I think for me, we've moved beyond one piece of tech being the game changer. Like 8 years ago, and forgive me if I've got the exact dates wrong, but it was a while before the pandemic, so I'm going to say 8. 8 years ago, it was like, you've got to be using Facebook ads. If you're not using Facebook ads, you are missing out on a massive growth opportunity. And it was like, there's one tool to rule them all. That was the easy recommendation for what should you be doing next year. Now that is less the case. For me, it's now more about oh, this is good. It's really dull and hard to put together stuff, but
I know.
it's like data democratization within the business, understanding where all your data is coming from, product data, sales data, marketing analytics data, getting it all in one place, making sure everyone can analyze it and access it in a good way, and then feeding it out to all the little algorithmic bunnies that power your business so they can make the right decisions. And it's like de-siloing the whole business so everyone's working together within the business. Like merchandising aren't 300 miles away and not ever talking to you, and marketing aren't, the brand team aren't existing on some higher plane and just occasionally sending down an updated brand guidelines document. You're actually all getting together and working together without those silos to make the right decisions for the business. And then at the heart of all of that lies really understanding your customer, really understanding their wants, their needs, their desires, and how to fulfill those in a way that delivers for your business as well. And I think that's the core of all of it. If I was going to give you one hot tip, which you could put in a little nuggety, it would be tapping into the second-hand market.
Mm-hmm.
There is a huge there's about to be huge legal pressure,
Mm-hmm.
governmental pressure on everybody to be taking responsibility for their products end of life as well as the beginning of the lifetime journey. But there's also huge amounts of money that fashion brands in particular can tap into and build customer retention as well by running buyback schemes to buy old product back in and then reselling
I
the
think
second hand.
it has something to do with more sustainable practices that all of the governments are working on so that you can reuse and recycle as much as you can.
Yeah, I think there's like a dual, there's like the pressure of governments changing their legislation, which is happening. I mean, Europe's kind of leading the way. Here in the UK, we're following most of what they're doing. But then you've got, so there's various kind of legal pressures coming down the line onto businesses to be more sustainable, to prove their sustainability, to take more responsibility for the products they're making, both in the creation process and in the post-production lifetime of the product. But then there's also we're seeing it hugely here in the UK of customers spending more and more on secondhand platforms. Vinted in particular is changing the game over here. eBay's playing catch up very, very quickly, and it's become, 3, 4, 5 years ago, you'd have only a few people would be admitting to wearing secondhand clothing, you know, when they're doing it. I mean, right now, I am almost head to toe in secondhand stuff I've got off Vinted. And I'm perfectly happy saying that, not only in public, but on a business podcast, It's it's not because I can't afford to buy the full price clothes. It's because I want to buy the secondhand ones for the sustainability reasons, and I will happily pocket the savings as well. But um, that is creating a new consumer need, a new consumer desire, which if you can build, and there's a whole plethora of different business models for this, where you buy back the stock and you sell it on another part of your website, where you create a customer to customer marketplace on your own site, where you buy the stock back in and then you sell it via a shop on eBay or something. But it enables you as a business to have a take in that profitability. And there's a business in the UK whose name I've just forgotten, who've been
I think
mapping. Sorry, go for it. Otherwise, I'll go off on one. So ask me another
no,
question.
I think there are multi-dimensional aspects to
Mm,
tapping that second-hand market. First, segregating your revenue channels because you are not only selling the fresh stuff. There is a bigger back channel to the business when you are giving that option of buyback to the customers and reselling it to the other customers who still want it but at a much lower price. That way, you are ensuring customer retention because people know they'll come back, sell what they have, and buy something new. So they won't go anywhere. They get better governmental benefits because they conform to the ESG practices that many governments are now enforcing as the basic norms of running your retail business. So if you see it from a bird's eye view, it's not just the single direction, it's multi-direction, right? So
And
thank you for
there's
that tip. Yeah,
one more I'd add into your list there is the trust factor, because now as the separate platforms are growing, there's that, well, is this really from that brand? And there's people using AI to create product, one-off fashion products, slapping a brand's label on it and then selling that on Vinted at that brand's price point. And then it's like, I think the winner is going to be the brand buys back the stock, vets it, preps it, and then sells it via their own secondhand marketplace, because then there's the trust factor back in it. I'm still buying it from the brand. I know it's going to be from that brand. I know it's going to be sufficient quality. I know I'm going to get it. I know I'm not going to get frauded. And I think that trust element is hugely important too.
I think that's a very, very relevant point, Chloe. Now let's quickly talk about, as you have spoken about selling on marketplaces, right? I when I talk to a lot of our customers, they're they're always coming up with this query. Should I focus on creating my own channels, or should I first target and go and sell on marketplaces like Etsy or Amazon, right? Even if it's prints, right? Um, what do you think is the smartest way for, specifically, let's say, custom merchandise brand owners or print service providers to have a right mix of marketplace traffic plus their own channels? What do you suggest?
I think the end goal is to be where the customer wants to buy from you, which means eventually you will end up selling on multiple marketplaces and probably via your own site. To attempt to do that on day one is a terrible idea. I mean, because simply you are not going to do them all well. And the only way you're going to grow your own site or Etsy or Amazon or eBay or whatever other marketplace you end up on, the only way you're going to grow those well is by properly understanding that platform and how it functions, how you drive traffic to it, how you make your margin on it, how you play the game on it, whatever that game may be, and then how you best serve those customers. Because whilst they'll all be your customer, they want your product, they have different ways of behaving. We all buy differently on Amazon to how we buy in other places. We buy differently on Etsy to how we buy on other places. So you might maybe, if you're a glutton for punishment, you might start on day one or year one by testing 2 or 3 and see where you get a bit of traction, and then kind of mothball the others and focus primarily on the one where you've got the traction to see that grow. So you can learn about your product range, you can learn about the customer, learn about your price points, perfect that channel, and then roll out to others. But it's such a difficult question. You speak to someone who mainly sells on marketplaces and they'll say, oh, we had a great year, but we've still failed to build our own website. And you'll hear people who've got their own website and like, oh, we've had a great year, but we can't work out which marketplace to launch, and we know we need to do it, but we just haven't got, the grass is always greener on the other side. They are quite different business models. They require different skill sets. So perfect one, but know you'll be expanding.
Exactly. And I think at some point you have to get your strategy right and you have to keep going, because I've seen a lot of business owners making these mistakes that once they start, and if they haven't set a plan, they keep changing the strategy. And because of doing that, they keep vesting or reinvesting their resources into same thing and never reaching the end goal, because e-commerce is a tough game. It's much
Mm-hmm.
more tougher than running your physical stores or brick and mortar stores, because you can easily get lost in millions and millions of suppliers who are offering the same thing to the intended customers, right? And that brings to me some of the last interesting questions. That spending on online marketing, it's a huge decision. It's a decision every business owner have to make
Mm-hmm.
carefully, because big budget marketing is boring, right? I believe personally that smart, scrappy marketing wins. So let me ask you, if you have had $1,000 for growing your business online, where would you put it first?
Uh, I'm very, very glad you asked me this in advance, because I could spend days trying to give you an answer of this and drilling it down. I think though, right now, tail end of 25 going into 2026, one of the most interesting new marketing channels out there for me is performance PR, right? Which is this weird mashup between affiliate marketing, by which I mean paying a commission on sales to someone who drives traffic to your website. Just to be clear, I know affiliates can be thought of as lots of different things, but that's what I mean by affiliate marketing. And good old fashioned PR, getting into the big newspapers, the big, publishers of magazines, etc. What you'd see on the traditional newsstand in the station or wherever. And that is kind of become one of the publishing industry's reactions to the death of print media and the growth of online views, which is most journalists at the big print companies, from the New York Times down, right? They are now targeted by their boss to put a certain number of affiliate links into every article and to generate a certain amount of affiliate income from their writing. Okay, so how you tap into that is you have affiliate accounts with the affiliate platforms that the big newspapers are tied into, so it's nice and easy for the journalist to add the right links, and then you do PR outreach to those people to get that activity. You do need some level of PR expertise. So someone who can cut through the inbox of the journalist, because if you think your inbox is mad, look at the inbox of a journalist. It's insane. I don't know how they manage it. Like press releases and pitches every 30 seconds. But when it hits, it's going to hit really well. And that you can definitely get started being a bit scrappy, being a bit cunning for the $1,000 a mark. And it gives you a lot more than just the actual sales. You're going to have profile in big news outlets that you can put on your website as proof of your validity and to build trust. You get the traffic over the long term. It's not short term. This lasts long term. Yes, you'll pay for the commission, but you're going to have those links up there for a long, long time. You've got trackable results, which I think is really important when you've got small budgets. You need to know where the money's coming from, and because it's affiliate links, you know where it's coming from, which is great. And it's pay on performance, the great majority of it. So if it takes 3 months to get a link, you haven't spent any money yet, which I think is really good when you're trying to be a bit scrappy. So yeah, that's what I would give a go to.
And I think there can't be a better advice than that. But there is one thing that I've recently discussed with a lot of people, that
Mm-hmm.
if you believe that, let's say, print is taken over by the online marketing, then do you still feel that all this exhibitions, expos, and real time events make sense anymore?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm a big fan of face-to-face activity, both within the e-commerce industry. So e-commerce brands walking around with supplier side people in their booths, and networking events and so on and so forth. I'm a big fan of those. But I think you have to be more strategic these days, in both as the person paying for the stand and as the delegate walking around. You need to be more strategic at what you're going to and make sure that you are putting the effort in to make sure it delivers. I think the days of just attending things for a jolly are over. So I think there's still a lot of space. I think here in the UK we are oversaturated with events, but everyone's still powering money into them. It's mad. I'm pretty certain if you were a brand in London, you could eat out every lunchtime and every dinner time, Monday to Friday, with somebody buying you dinner somewhere, buying you a meal. It's ridiculous. And probably breakfast too. And so I think we're like somewhat overpopulated, but I think there's still a huge place for them. I should say I am also a big fan of print marketing. Started my career in mail order, so there's definitely a lot of scope in print and postal marketing too. So yeah, I think it's gonna. I don't think physical real world events are going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, because at the end, I think that's the human touch which brings back people on the floor. Because, okay, I mean, whatever it is, even if you're buying online all the time, right? There is a time when you actually want to go to the store, not just for buying but for the experience of buying it, right? And that's what draws the physical prints, the exhibitions, shows, for the people, right?
Yeah, and on the retailers side of it, if you're selling goods to consumers, the number of online only brands who have huge success with pop-ups or a stand at, a gift fair or something, and the thing it gives you, as well as the sales and the customers having a chance to come and see you, the thing it gives you is a chance to actually talk to your customers, and see them in the flesh and see them reacting to your product. So it's a massively powerful research engine. I think every online brand ought to do it at least once a year in some format or another, just to physically be in the same space as your customers. So yeah, real world, definitely not going anywhere.
And that's a very powerful tool because you see that reaction in the real time, instantly, right? So, Chloe, I know we can go on and on. My list is not over, but I know it's time we conclude the thing. So, quickly, would you like to give some final key takeaways for the audience who is here?
Of course, I think 2026 is going to be a great year in the e-commerce space, but I think it's going to be another challenging year for whatever geopolitical, economic reasons. Let's not get into those. To come down to get us. I think success in 2026 is going to be built on understanding your customers well and working out which problems to solve, which opportunities to tap into, and not spreading yourself too thinly, which I think we've covered in a lot of detail in this call. Both me and Nidhi have given you loads of advice on that. And if you want to get in contact with me and you've got any questions, you will find me on LinkedIn. If you want more tips and advice and strategies and to peer behind the window of some other e-commerce brands, then do have a listen to the e-commerce master plan podcast. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good year. I think 2026 is going to be fun.
I truly believe so. So, thank you, Chloe, for your time today. It has been wonderful talking to you, and I got to learn so much from talking to you. So, I hope we meet again over such wonderful discussion. But once again, thank you for being on this episode of Print Yarn, and wish you a great year ahead, a great 2026.
Thanks, Eddie. Same to you. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you. You've got my brain cells going, and it's been a real treat. So thank you.
Thank you.